The white cutter cuts across Unaizah May 6's bow and stays there. The loaded boat has to break its straight line before the morning run has even settled into rhythm. A crate corner bangs against a deck rail. A fuel drum strap groans under sudden strain. BRP Bagacay opens out on one side at once, and BRP Cabra widens on the other. Both escorts trying to keep the smaller craft covered while it turns off the clean approach. Dawn is still pale over the eastern approach to Second Thomas Shoal. The sea is uneven, the light is low, and the first usable lane west is gone in a single move. The 17th of March 2026. Eastern approach to Second Thomas Shoal, 6:08 a.m. Spray blows off short chop as the Filipino convoy keeps moving in a tighter, uglier curve than planned. Unaizah May 6 is a chartered civilian resupply boat, heavy with boxed food, fuel drums, water containers, rope, repair material, and crew supplies lashed under tarps and netting. Bagacay runs ahead and slightly out to port.
Roger that, holding
Cabra holds the other side, ready to shield the slower craft if the water turns bad. Far above them, empty sky waits for later daylight. Ahead, one large white hull sits exactly where open water should be. For several seconds, the cutter looks almost still. Then the angle becomes clear. This is not drift. This is placement. China Coast Guard 5901 is broad in the lane. White paint already catching the first hard edge of morning light. Bow pointed just enough to hold the narrow water shut without needing a dramatic surge. The smaller cargo boat does not have room to pretend the road is still open. Everyone on the escorts can read it at once. The ship in the lane is not making one dangerous pass. It is parking itself across the route and forcing the entire mission to answer around that fact. At first, the escorts try the obvious solution. Bagacay probes a little wider to see whether the loaded boat can slip past the blocker's forward quarter. Cabra shapes out the other way to stretch the geometry and buy room. The distance looks workable for a moment less than half a mile, then tighter, then down to water that feels usable if the timing holds. It does not. The larger patrol vessel plants itself in the path and keeps the opening closed. Unaizah May 6 turns off the clean line while still burdened with cargo, and the correction sends its bow into broken chop at a bad angle. The first hard slap of water runs right over the forward deck. The bow rises, drops,
the course
takes
correction put the hull at a
spray.
dangerous angle.
A second ugly turn follows because the white hull ahead never really leaves the road. That is how the pressure starts. Not with impact, not with panic, with repeated bad angles in the same patch of disturbed sea. Cargo answers the rolling deck in heavy little shoves. Wet rope knocks against metal. One man near the forward section lifts a hatch cover after another hard plunge and looks down into dim space where things should be drier than they are. He does not shout. He just calls for a pump, and the tone in his voice changes the whole boat. Wind pushes salt mist aft as the crew shift from routine deck work to damage control without stopping the mission entirely. One sailor reaches for a portable pump and drags it toward the wet forward section, while another retightens lashings because the load is starting to answer every roll more aggressively. Boots slip, recover, and keep moving. The hatch rim is cold and slick under gloved hands. Below, water is not pouring in yet, but it is working in low and stubborn after each hard hit into the chop. On the escorts, bridge crews stop thinking only about timing a pass and start calculating something uglier. How long can they keep trying while the loaded boat is beginning to take water? Through the late morning, the standoff becomes a contest between time and condition. Every half hour, the blocking ship is still there, broad and white in roughly the same controlling patch of water. Every forced turn makes the smaller cargo boat meet the sea badly again. Bagacay can guard one side, Cabra can protect the other. Neither escort can move 5,901 out of the lane. The pump starts up with a chattering motor and buys time, not safety. Water sloshes below in a way nobody aboard wants to hear twice. The loaded boat keeps its cargo aboard. That means it also keeps its weight, and weight is becoming the real enemy. By late morning, a new sound cuts across the wind from high overhead. A Philippine Coast Guard Cessna 208B Caravan passes above the scene, small and distant against the stronger daylight. Its engine note thin compared with the diesel throb below. Men glance up for half a second, then back to the water because nothing overhead changes the immediate problem. Down at deck level, the bow of Unaizah May 6 is answering slower and landing heavier after each turn. Spray keeps blowing across the hatch area. Salt dries on sleeves. The ship in the lane does not need to rush or crowd. It simply sits across the route and lets sea state, load, and time do the tiring work. The hours keep adding up. First, it is one pump, one wet compartment, one set of straps needing another pull. Then it becomes a pattern. The smaller cargo boat rides lower forward than it did at dawn. A turn that would have been manageable at first light now sends a thicker burst of water over the bow. Bagacay tries shaping a broader approach to create cleaner water for a withdrawal or another attempt. Cabra edges in close enough to see rust marks on the white cutter's lower paint where the sun catches them. None of it opens the road. The gap shortens, then disappears, then never really returns. The loaded craft keeps taking the swell wrong because the block never leaves the lane long enough for a straight run. Midday heat settles over every deck and makes everything feel slower, except the problem itself. The pump keeps working. Loose items knock in rhythm with the hull. One forward crewman checks the seepage again and finds more water than before. Not enough to force immediate abandonment. Enough to make every next decision worse. Bagacay's crew can see the smaller boat sitting a little deeper by the bow now. Cabra stays close enough to help and far enough to avoid trapping it in hard rolling water. On Unaizah May 6, men move carefully around cargo that was packed for delivery, not survival. The mission is still alive. The boat carrying it is not improving. The escorts keep trying because there is still daylight and still deck above the sea. One careful turn east. One wider shape back west. One more test of whether the white cutter will ease off enough to let the supply run thread through. It never happens. Each approach ends with the same brutal simplicity. The blocking ship remains in the way, the smaller boat has to answer around it, and the lower deck fills a little more than before. Wind carries diesel smell, salt, damp tarp, and the faint, hot metal scent of a pump running too long. By early afternoon, the convoy is no longer fighting the sea alone. It is managing a loaded craft that sounds wetter below deck every time the bow comes down. By mid-afternoon, the problem was no longer reaching the shoal before dark. It was keeping the supply boat alive long enough to turn away. Late in the day, Bagacay tries one last careful reposition to help Unaizah May 6 come out of the worst water and begin withdrawing east. The move is measured, not dramatic. Cabra widens to give the smaller boat room to turn without drifting into an escort. For a few seconds, the route out looks manageable. Then the white cutter slides back into the escape lane and leans across the bow again, taking away the cleanest water just as the loaded craft is trying to come off its bad angle. The result is immediate. The supply boat is forced into another half-committed turn while already taking water. There is no good choice left. Hold the boat on course and risk another heavy slam into broken chop, or start moving crew off while there is still enough deck above the sea to work with. The decision has to happen before darkness and flooding join forces. That makes the moment feel smaller and harsher than a cinematic climax. Nobody is choosing victory anymore. They are choosing between bad options while the sea keeps hitting the hull and the ship in the lane keeps the path shut. On the bridges of both escorts, the problem shrinks to one question: how much boat is left to work from? The white hull is close enough now to make deck crew visible. Bagacay has barely enough room to shield the smaller craft without boxing it in. Unaizah May 6 hits the next wake wrong and lurches hard to one side. The sound comes first. Cargo shifting below planks and hatch combings. A low sliding shove followed by a hollow knock. Then the feel reaches the deck through boots and knees. Men grab railings. One fuel drum chain snaps tight and holds. Another stack of box supplies leans into its netting and stays there under strain. No one needs another look below to know the loaded boat is growing heavy forward. Pump noise becomes part of the tension now. A strained motor note battling wind, slap and shouted instructions shortened by the weather. Wet boots scrape and slip on metal. A loose item bangs, rolls, hits something solid, then stops. Engine tone changes as the smaller craft settles deeper and answers the helm more slowly. Bagacay keeps station in ugly water, close enough to help, careful not to trap the boat. Cabra ranges just outside, ready to take crew if the transfer order comes. Light is fading fast. The hull remains in the lane. The supply run is lower by the bow and still carrying fuel, food, rope, repair gear, and everything else that now makes it harder to save. By early evening, the situation compresses all at once. Bad light is coming. The civilian resupply craft is riding lower. Water is still getting in despite the pump. The cargo stays aboard, which means the weight stays aboard too. The blocking ship holds the route shut. The escorts have to protect the crew. Keep clear of the smaller boat's next roll, and prepare for a transfer in rough water with almost no stable platform anywhere. Every motion gets harder after sunset. Every mistake becomes easier. A line whips against a cleat. A man clips on and checks the carabiner twice. Nobody says much because the work leaves no extra breath. Then comes the hardest realization of the whole day. The cargo is staying, and they are not. That truth lands with a physical weight sharper than the spray. One by one, crew on Unaizah May 6 start preparing to come off the sinking deck onto the Escort. They clip on. They grab lines. They move around fuel drums, water containers, and strapped boxes that were meant for the shoal and are now obstacles in the path to survival. The smaller boat rolls in darkening water while the white cutter still keeps the approach closed. This is not a grand abandonment scene. It is a rough, practical act carried out before the sea decides the timing for them. The transfer is messy, loud, and urgent. Bagacay edges in on the safer side first, then backs off a fraction when the loaded boat rolls harder than expected. Cabra comes closer to take the next pair. One man misses a step and catches a rail with both hands instead of the sea. Another has to shove a floating crate aside to reach a handhold. A line goes taut between hulls and hums under strain. Spray bursts cold across faces and gloves. Orders come in single phrases because longer ones vanish in the wind. Nobody aboard either escort mistakes the stakes now. They are not saving a mission. They are getting people off before darkness makes the deck a trap. For a few minutes, the whole standoff narrows to hands, rails, rope, and timing. One crewman comes across bent low, boots sliding, shoulders soaked. Another waits for the next roll to pass, then steps over with both arms locked on a safety line. The pump is still running somewhere behind them. It sounds smaller now, almost lost under engines and water. Fuel drums remain where they were. Boxed goods stay wedged under netting. Repair material meant for the outpost stays inside a boat that cannot carry it much longer. The escorts keep count out loud in quick, clipped numbers. That rhythm matters more than anything else in the failing light. By the time the final crewman clears the deck, Unaizah May 6 is down enough by the bow that staying aboard no longer helps the mission and may trap someone after full dark. The pump is left running until the last possible moment, then abandoned with the boat. Bagacay pulls away first with part of the crew. Cabra takes the rest and steadies off the smaller craft's beam. Behind them, the flooded resupply boat remains upright for the moment, wallowing heavily, lights weak, load still inside. The sea does not give it a clean ending. It just keeps working at it. Farther out, the white cutter remains broad and steady in the failing light, as if none of the last 11 hours have changed its purpose at all. When the last crewman stepped off the sinking deck, the cargo was still aboard. The route was still blocked, and the white cutter was still there. The escorts now carry the full Filipino crew, soaked, tired, and still looking back. In the darkening water behind them, the abandoned resupply craft drifts unevenly, bow down, stern a little higher, taking each wave badly, because no one is left aboard to answer the helm or shift weight. Nothing explodes. Nothing ends cleanly. The damage is slower than that and uglier to watch. A working civilian boat becoming a lost one in front of the people who came out to protect it. Engine noise is lower now, but every slap of water against the empty hull sounds louder because there is nobody left on deck to fight it. The Philippines says all crew were recovered safely and the mission was forced to abort. That sentence is short. The sea around it is not. As Bagacay and Cabra turn east with survivors aboard, the blocking ship does not peel away or drift wide to signal the encounter is over. It keeps the same water controlled. In the near dark, another smaller white vessel appears farther off, not close enough to intervene, near enough to add presence around the now abandoned cargo boat and the still closed approach. The message is plain without needing a word. The mission has been broken. The lane remains under control. The flooded supply run sits in the middle of that fact, like evidence the water itself can now hold. By full night, the sea stops looking like one denied route and starts looking like a door that can be held shut until smaller boats wear out in front of it. Bagacay can save the crew. Cabra can help with the transfer and keep the rescue orderly. Neither escort can save the cargo, the civilian craft, and the mission, all at once, while fighting darkness, bad water, and the ship in the lane. That is what makes the outcome feel heavier than a simple abort. Food, fuel, rope, repair gear, bottled water, of everything that mattered to the outpost is still out there, either inside the flooded boat or lost to whatever happens next. The rescued men are counted, checked, wrapped, and moved below as the patrol vessels work east. Wet clothes cling cold. Gloves come off. Blankets appear. Questions stay short because everyone already knows the main answer. All crew are safe. The load is gone from their hands. One sailor stares at empty space on the Escorts deck where transferred supplies should have been stacked if the day had gone another way. Another sits with salt, drying on his sleeves, and listens to the engine note, settle into the long run away from the shoal. Survival has been secured. The mission itself has not. Around midnight, the significance grows clearer, precisely because the action is over. No collision was needed, no gunfire, no high-speed chase. A single long blocking posture turned delay into damage, damage into flooding, and flooding into abandonment. The Escorts did not lose their nerve. The crew did not lose control. The loaded boat simply ran out of margin first. That is a harsher kind of defeat because it feels mechanical, almost patient. The smaller craft kept taking water. The weight stayed aboard. The daylight ran out. The route stayed shut. Step by step, the method proved it could break a resupply mission without ever needing a spectacular final blow. Toward morning, tired men move quietly through cramped spaces aboard the Escorts, while the sea outside turns from black to a cold gray. Metal smells damp. Decks stay slick. Rope coils sit where transfer work left them. On the bridges, watches continue because the contested water is still ahead even as they pull away from it. No one mistakes the safety of the rescue crew for resolution. The shoal still needs supplies. The outpost still waits. The abandoned craft has become more than a flooded boat. It is now a warning attached to the next run, before that next run even leaves port. In contested water, delay can be enough. First light reveals the material shape of the failure more brutally than darkness did. There is empty deck space where cargo should have gone. There are tired men who made it back. There is no delivered food, no secured fuel, no stack of repair gear waiting to be passed ashore. Out in the same section of water, white hulls still hold presence where the lane should open. The lost civilian craft, whether still afloat or deeper in the water by then, has already done its work as a symbol. It shows what happens when a smaller supply boat is forced to spend too many hours in bad water while a larger vessel keeps the road shut. The wider implication sits in that morning light without needing explanation. The blocking method has just shown that it can break a mission through endurance, positioning, and sea state rather than spectacle. That matters because it changes the next planning cycle before it begins. Future crews will think about pumps sooner. Escorts will think about transfer space sooner. Every chartered boat will carry the memory of one loaded craft that stayed in the chop too long because the approach never opened. The men aboard Bagacay and Cabra know it already. Their hands feel it in rope burns, wet gloves, tired shoulders, and the absence of the cargo that never reached the shoal. As the Escorts continue east, the mission does not feel finished, so much as interrupted in the worst possible place. The survivors are aboard. The abandoned load is not. The contested approach behind them remains occupied. Ahead lies the return to port, the report, the questions, the accounting, and the preparation that follows any failure that cannot be allowed to repeat. Behind lies the flooded supply boat and the water that took it a little at a time. The next confrontation has not begun yet, but it is already implied by everything that is still missing. In this kind of standoff, recovery of the crew is only one ending. At first light, the lane was still closed, and the next mission was already sailing toward the same water.